Hello, everyone. This is Tijen Genco. Welcome to Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco. And we're welcoming my usual companion, Sajili Mohan Chawla. Welcome, Sajili. How are you?
Hello, Tijen. I'm well. I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you. And we are going to go into towards the neurologic part of the coaching and somatic descent and some other things today. So, how would you like to get us started?
Yes, I think, a majority of coaches that one listens to or one speaks with are looking for their own growth as well in service of their clients. And I just thought that you do offer something which is called beyond polyvagal theory,
Yes.
um, towards transcendental coaching. And I'm wondering if we could have two sort of themes running in a sense, which is really to understand the why and the what of it, and also how did the various programs really uh, expand and build the muscle which with which a coach can really go beyond, take the client beyond wherever they are at this point.
Hmm. Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay, okay. Well, lovely. So then maybe I should just jump in
Why
with my
not?
question. Okay,
Don't jump,
okay.
slowly slide in so that we don't put the nervous system in.
Nice, nice catch. Nice catch. See, that's the special thing. And in fact, I've been thinking about so many incidents which came up during the group mentoring and beyond when we have exchanged, when I've been a part of the programs. And I really had to see, there were so many examples which came flooding in, but we'll see how that goes. So I think I'd really like to start with, that we have the mind, the body, the heart, the spirit. And while everybody pays lip service to the continuum, but really, most coaches and coaching studies do tilt very clearly towards the mind. So, how would you say your approach then helps us honor the distinct roles of each and really sense into their own tempo and language? And, you know, I think you speak a lot also of the symbolic terrain. So maybe you could just, maybe if you think that's a good starting point.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. So, I often speak about the my method, the Genco method, holistic approach to coaching. It's because the human beings are not like an AI walking around with just with the mind, right? We are maybe some form of an artificial or organic intelligence, but we do have more than one intelligences. That we have intelligence of the mind, intelligence of the heart, intelligence of the kidneys, intelligence of the nervous system, intelligence of each cell. So each of those things are responding to the moment based on our cognitive functions and the perception of the moment. If you think about the functional medicine, right, it's different than the Western medicine. It looks at the functionality and the tries to return the system back into its own intended functionality. And if we look at the traditional healing systems such as Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, and other forms, they intend to restore the harmonic states within these different aspects of the human beings. So therefore, let's say if your garage door is not functioning, you don't need to go fix the window in your bedroom, right? Or you don't need to look around the window in the bedroom to see what the problem is. We need to understand as coaches the access cues and what's happening in the relational field between the coach and the client, and appropriate our approach, the strategies, the language towards what's being presented. Eventually, you could start the inquiry in the bedroom with the window, and eventually may descend by luck or some level of intelligence to the garage door, but it's not going to be as effective, right? So the coach's capability of understanding these nuances and listen holistically and respond in the same, that will get us into more relevant approaches, more relevant strategies, and enhanced, elevated partnership.
Yes. Yes, I mean, I really like this expression, return the system to the intended harmonic state, and then being sensitive to that relational field, which will get one there. I well, it's very appealing when I listen to this, and yet I'm thinking that as if the coach is in their own understanding, and maybe very well meaning so, but if they are prioritizing cognition over emotion, or they are seeing, I mean, you just spoke about the intelligence of the kidney and the intelligence of every cell, but yet if the body is being looked at merely as functional, I think the point I'm trying to say is that the coach may have their own inclinations and tendencies in that sense. Uh, how would then that limit the capacity to listen holistically?
Significantly, because the coach's biases, preferences, social conditioning, social upbringing, their idea about what brings success, what doesn't, what is okay, what's not okay, right? I'm constantly being asked, oh, well, I'm only coaching executives. How can I apply this? Are executives human beings? Yeah. What kind of executives are you coaching? So I think that there are significant amount cognitive distortion, biases, and what's right, what's not right is influencing the minds of the coaches and the world at large, that is getting in the way of relating to another human being and understanding what moment requires. If the coach is learned very young, right, that there are worldwide limitations. Men don't cry, don't do that, women don't speak up, and all those things, where are they going to go? They're going to come to the coach's session alongside of the coach. So this is going to impact their capabilities.
And I think sliding in from the first reply to the second, I can almost feel how the limitation of the coach is such a straitjacket in terms of what is on offer.
Yeah,
In that
beautiful
thing.
metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was so visceral. Just that's how
Take it
it was.
off. Take it off.
Brush it off. Absolutely, jump out of it now. Yes. So then, even as I hear this, I wonder what would it mean then for a coach who is um, if I use quite a mouthful of an expression, the coach is spiritually attuned, uh, and yet somatically grounded. I have heard you use this phrase at some point, and so say a little more about that.
Yeah, so I think that there are a couple things happening as my sensing becomes active in me and other people, right? When I see a lot of people walking around like a drone when they're constantly on their mind, right? There is no grounding. The feet are not necessarily touching the ground to stabilize the system. Overthinking is really overheating the mind and the thought places. We see the same thing that when somebody like those sadhus, right? They go around completely immersed in the spiritual world. They don't even properly clothe themselves and feed themselves, and that then there is also still this connection from the world. And so we, in order for us to be the human being in this planet, we need to be in the planet. Therefore, that means there needs to be connection to the planet, to the current moment. That is the grounding. And then we could then understand what takes within the moment as a reference to this moment. I think that we are quite vectorial, right? Our experience is defined given the moment relative to our existence. I'm talking a little bit philosophical here, but um, experiences cannot be explained without the conditions of the moment because it will be very different. Therefore, we need to be grounded in the moment and also being able to open to receive the moment from the earth point of view as well as the spiritual point of view, two different vectorial analyses. And then what is happening to the incarnated vessel, right? The vessel that holds us in this space. So we have multi-dimensional existence, and it needs to be received and understood when the human relationships arrives at higher degree of complexities.
Yeah, as I listen to you, I'm reminded of um, any kind of bypass is a bypass. I mean, whether you look at an emotional or a somatic or, you know, anything. I think two things are happening. One, of course, I'm reminded of the various, when we say something which sounds very lofty, but it's not really connected, then, like you said, your feet are not on the ground. It's it's like the boat without the anchor.
Exactly.
That's really how well, that's how well you describe it, and I see the visual, or I feel it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. 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 And also how critical it is. I mean, the role of a coach and the being of the coach. Um, so then, what going ahead from here? Then what could be the cues? Um, of a nervous system which becomes more visible to a coach, the client's nervous system, um, and the coach might be missing so many things. So what really should a coach what cues should the coach be looking for in the nervous system of the client?
I think that the safety trust and safety are the indicators, right? That there are theories around the change models and trans-theoretical change model and so on talks about change readiness and all that, right? If the client isn't feeling safe, there is no point coaching them in anywhere. So the indications can appear in multiple ways. If the client is resisting what's being offered or supported to change, that shows definitely there is no safety in the system. Without establishment of that within the relational field, nothing can occur. If the safety is there, we can look for the additional cues that's presented. There are nervous system indicators that can come from explanation of the neurolinguistic patterning or the polyvagal theory and such, that we could look into the verbal expressions that comes from the client, indicates the client's cognitive patterning, eye movements, hand gestures, body movements. Often that when the client is talking, for example, and for those of you listening, not watching the video, I'm spinning my hand around with my finger. This sort of behavior, right, shows entanglement in the energy system. Something is looping. So then I'm going to get curious about as a coach, what is looping and that is not flowing. So there are many cues that the educated and sensitized coaches can look. It's not one thing or the other, but if you think about you have 10 different projects at your desk and you need to prioritize. We prioritize based on our preferences, based on consequences, based on our inclinations. And so therefore, if there are multiple cues that is being presented in the client's experience, coach will listen to them based on their preferences and then prioritize where to go from there. If they, as we talked earlier, if their preferences, I have to be showing up here super analytical, that's going to make me look like the best coach ever, they are going to miss all bunch of lovely cues presented. Or if they learn to not to descend in their body, you're a man, don't be emotional, and so on, they're going to miss the emotional expressions. So I think that what to look for in the moment is all of it, and how to follow the cues is, if whenever humanly is possible, to exit the preferences of the coach but attune to the client louder cue.
Really, as a coach, it's listening to you is bringing alive. It's stirring within. I think that's a better. It's stirring the responsibility of that partnering, because otherwise, and if I may, I mean, I'm tempted to share an example where we were a part of your group mentoring cohort, and you just spoke about the hand movement. And I think in that particular instant, the person who was being the client made a hand movement like this,
Yes.
like a wave, right? And another person in the cohort said, "So what do you think this means?" And just there you said, "How primitive is that?"
Yeah.
Whereas you just said, "Look, this hand movement is looping, because the distinction is that the client may not even know that what that hand movement really indicates. So for a coach to not just because we have to be sensitive to somatic movements, we just I love that expression, be primitive and just report it back.
Yeah.
And the client who's already in a sense in the midst of that issue, expect the client to interpret it
Yes.
is really an unfair ask.
Beautifully said, right? We don't need to work harder than the client, but we don't need to assign our work to the client. And right, the supporting the client says, I'm noticing there is a wave-like movement. I wonder that where in the waves are present for you, or if how is that, what kind of metaphor does that present to you? So support, even if you don't understand what is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. So, taking this forward, then in the Genco method, you're training coaches to listen to the thing beneath the thing.
Yeah.
That's another expression, right? And again, like I said, I'm always full of these. The minute I hear you say this, I read it in your book, and how beautifully you play it out in the sessions. For me, I see a car with the bonnet up, and that the and one is looking inside and saying, "What is this thing beneath the thing?" Invariably, there is an association, but really. Uh, so there is a nervous systems beyond just the physiology. I've heard you say there is the poetry in the nervous system and what really is being said there. So how do you train a coach for this?
So I actually, it's not news to you that, right? I integrate Eastern and Western sciences together. That it's not in full-blown explanation mode yet, but there is now understanding and possibly connecting the yogic channels with overlapping them with the nervous system, parasympathetic and sympathetic with the Ida and Pingala channels, and the spine itself being the central channel, the Shushumna. So whether you look at from the Western science perspective or the yogic energy channels perspective or the Chinese meridians energy flows perspective, what I invite us to do is to look at what is blocked, what wants to move, what wants to go somewhere, right? I'm an engineer. I'm looking to see what is happening needs to be regulated once more into its authentic divine flow. And so that's the main essence in these teachings and the thing beneath the thing. And I teach the neurologic approach in two parts, total of 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks, we talk and look into cognitive distortions and the linguistic patterns and all that. The second 4 week, which we look into further part of the nervous system, the safety, what is the signal wants to go from one place to the next, and what happens to that signal along the way, right? For example, if I say to myself, my executive functions, I want to lift my index finger, yet somehow one day in my life, as I was lifting my finger, I was slapped on my hand. As I am wanting to offer the function of lift the finger, my nervous system is going to say, I can't do that. Therefore, there are more than signals are being sent out. One wants to execute a function, another one is going to regulate that and disable that or muffle that. So if we don't understand as a coach, then we cannot release the flow in the system. Person is going to want to be the best coach and establish their coaching business, and another side is going to say, no, that's not safe. And you can give them the best strategy, best plan, and the best list. It isn't going to happen. And that's what I call thing beneath the thing. We got to descend into the system to understand what wants to fire a signal, what wants to block the signal, what is incapable of sending a signal, what is too tired that the signal gets lost, right, along the way. So we need to really understand the system's functionality, mechanics, and flow.
That is just beautiful. That is just beautiful. You know, to put aside your own story as a coach and priority and really see what signal is blocked, what wants to go, what is scared to come, where does it need to go, and how often you speak about the divine flow. I think it's just beautiful. If I may share an example from, I get reminded of it, and that this particular client spoke about. Mm, my God, so many of those incidents are coming. Let me see which might be here. So she was angry in a particular relationship, and at some point she spoke about stonewalling and saw herself behind a gray wall. And all of us coaches, in our excitement to serve, very well meaning, but in our excitement to serve, we unconsciously, maybe partly, and partly, of course, with the fervor to serve, the common interpretation was, oh my God, she's isolated and we have to get her out. So we went into the rescue mode. However, uh, we may have languaged it. Fundamentally,
Yeah.
that's what we did, right? And just speaking into what you just said, you know, which is about, but what is really happening with the client?
Mm-hmm.
And I recollect how very compassionately um, you said something like, hmm, seems lonely. What might you be needing to acclimatize with that anger? And it was really, I think, for all of us, including that person, it was like the floodgates opened.
Mm.
You know, the contrast between, like you said, like we spoke earlier, coach is not is getting the client to do the work where the client is not in a state to do the work, and in a sense also imposing their their judgments of, look, is it lonely, is it not lonely, what is it, how do we rescue, and that was just the most you know, it was almost as if everybody's nervous system, you
Mm-hmm.
speak about the polyvagal and it was so palpable. We were across the world because that's how your mentoring groups are, you know, people from across the world. And yet all our little Zoom windows, it was just so palpable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Thank
just
you.
beautiful.
Because the safety needed to establish to feel the wall. And even though the wall seemed to be blocking something, that's the blocking signal, but it has a purpose. It has a noble intent. We can't go anywhere invalidating that.
Mm.
We need to partner with that signal to restore the flow. So, yeah.
This makes me want to ask a question about the ripeness of a moment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and of course you have spoken about picking up the cues of the nervous system at multiple levels because we are complex beings. Um, you've also spoken about the thing beneath the thing. But really, is there, so how would you gauge the ripeness and the readiness of the client? Because many of us coaches are also using, I'm curious to know, I wonder. I mean, that's all very well. But but it's not often not in service of the client, of where the client is in the moment and what the
Yes.
client is needing in the moment. So
Yeah.
how
So
would you talk about
the
that?
readiness is in every moment, but the readiness to do what
Ah,
and be what, right? So appropriation of that and enhancing that allows deepening the relationship and the possibilities, deepens the relationship between the coach and the client, enhances the relational space, which I call it sacred space. And therefore, then it has a possibility of deepening the relationship within the client. So the coach's capability of being indifferent and welcoming whatever it is, then allows whatever it is to give birth itself into, right? In the utilization of that moment to its potentiality, I see that is the mastery, not to take somebody to somewhere. It's none of my business. In fact, I hope I will never do that, because then I'm meddling into their karma and their choices, right? As a coach, we need to supplement and support their choice making and explore the qualities and the ripening of the moment in its own.
beautiful, beautiful, you said. Utilizing the moment to potentiality. Beautiful. It's just so much worth lingering on. Really, really well said.
Okay.
Really well. Well, I think I'm going to labor on this a little bit more because now what comes to me is as a coach, utilizing the moment or the appropriateness of what is that moment ready for. How does a coach discern when to invite a metaphor, when to stay with the sensation, when to pause for that inner safety, or to sense the ripeness? There's so much happening. You see?
Yeah, I do see it. And that's why I give often the metaphor of a full fanned peacock, right? When we get into session, we would be like that. It takes a lot of effort. It's not at all practical in life. It's beautiful and resource consuming, but it is also resourceful. So I think again your question is about what is most attractive in the moment. There is so many sensory cues that we receive as a coach, but I go with the energetic principles. What is most attractive in the moment? I follow that. What has most potency in the moment? I follow that. If the metaphor has the most potency, as humanly as possible, that lands on my energetic and sensory system, then I'm going to go after that. Of course, my individual preferences is going to probably influence, but that's what it is, right? That something brought me as a pair to this person. So that I need to honor that too. So we could go into, if we get ourselves, this is why I often say, do your own work, get ourselves some level of awareness and meta awareness. we could then observe the moment from a little bit of distance to notice these nuances. Is the somatic response more potent? Is the metaphor more potent? Is what they are processing analytically is more potent? So I often follow the potency to determine the best strategy.
Mm. Even as you say this, I'm again reminded of the same instance, the same person I spoke about who had the stonewalling and the anger. And very clearly, when she spoke about the anger, a lot of the questions which the cohort asked as coaches were around management of that anger. Right? And it was quite evident that it had become a repetitive loop,
Yeah.
because as a client, this person was saying the same things and answering different people, because everyone was hammering on the anger management piece. And I do recollect, when you speak about what is most attractive, what is
Potent.
most potent, really. And just one or two questions, and finally you clarified to the cohort and said, this is about anger processing. The client wants to process her anger. This is not about anger management. And that distinction just sits inside of me. How quickly we tend to conclude, as a coach, for us to feel our sense of self and say, I think I've joined the dots for the client. Which is,
Thank you for bringing that forward. Right, that demonstrate the cognitive formation and cognitive influence, right? The cultural cognitive influence around the world. That as soon as we see an anger, we automatically think it has to be managed. And a lot of the coaches on that cohort was coming from that referential point of view and strategizing alone, not together with the client. Versus I'm thinking, invalidating anger management invalidates the anger. It keeps them hostage into some level of regulatory movement, which client was already behind a stone wall. How do we partner with the anger to free it into its desired intent, which is the freeing the signal, right? And that's what I call the noble intent and intelligence. Anger wanted to bring forward an action, not necessarily violent action, but an appropriate action that suits the client's cultural heritage and the background toward self-sovereignty in that moment. This was about freeing the client's self-expression in her different roles. So if we assume things alone and not partnering with what is potent in this space with the client, then we're going to miss these very important cues, and that coaching would not have produced any supportive results. Could have supported the client into some level of maybe assertive communication. But can you understand the distinction between the two energetic flows?
sure, absolutely. And I do clearly recollect um, mm, how isolated the client was feeling,
Yes.
because the entire cohort, so it was almost, again, if I keep that gray wall as the visual, there was this whole lot of coaches on the one side and the client on the other, and all the coaches are determined to break down the wall, but she's not even interested in that
Yes.
as yet. But so I think the word that's really staying with me now is as a coach is, what am I invalidating, even if it is unconscious, even if it has a very
Yeah.
beautiful intent, but if am I invalidating the metaphor, like you said, the wall which was there for protection, the anger, whatever it may be, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And the thing is that you could also see, Sajili, if the anger, which is quite wide, worldwide issue, right, is allowed to only certain individuals, certain levels, but a lot of the rest of the world is needs something needs to be suppressed. So if the coach is matching the same level of cognition and this model of the world, then they won't be able to coach because that's going to meet the client. It will be all right what the client is doing. In fact, would be much more appropriate from the coach's cognitive models. So this is where I teach the neurologic approach to coaching to bring those more to the awareness.
Yes, I mean, it's again, I think at some point it's about the visual one gets is the client is in some sort of a swamp and we have joined the client in the swamp. So God bless both of us. In that sense, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, well, I think what's now coming up for me, because just there are, I'm actually seeing that peacock with all those feathers, and I'm greedy for all to sort of absorb all of them and internalize them. How then are the various courses which you offer? What could you give us a little peek into what you're inviting us into with the various courses?
Yeah, so I think that it's not at all to its full extent to address the human complexities, but I offer different, I call it access points or different languages to the client system and the relational system. So there is this somatic approach to coaching I offer, which we're recording this on November 2025. There is a course coming up in 2026 in February, which I rarely offer. Um, there is a neurologic approach to coaching, which I talked about earlier, that elevates and offers access cues through understanding the human safety, the signaling, neuro-linguistic cues, the cognitive errors, and the cognitive processing. Um, there are energetic coach training, which gives further understanding of sensing human energy and noticing disconnects and coaching directly through the energy itself, utilizing some language around the energy patterns. So these are additional, advanced in a way, accessible to anyone, but different engagement possibilities in coaching that I offer.
I think we started by speaking about this continuum, and I think listening to you, it's really quite an immersive journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very this thing. And anything else that you would like to say? Um,
I think that before we can be a whisperer of somebody else's nervous system or their entire system, we need to tend to our own.
sure, sure.
That's what I would like to say as a closing. So, anything else you wanted to share with our audience as we close, Sajili?
Well, I think there are many even being a part of your group mentoring brings alive flavors of all that you have just said. And so many of those examples and instances are coming flooding into me. Where was this uh, wonderful young man um, flying high on multiple, spinning. I think the expression was spinning multiple plates because there was
Yeah.
just so much activity, right? And you spoke about access points and what is the language of the client, and the most gentle way of bringing together and finding the access point through the back and the heart. And I still remember when you asked the question, so how is the back of your heart? And yet that is what then navigated the session. So I think it's really well, the sense I'm left with is that so much beyond the ACC, PCC, MCC stamps, which are very, very meaningful and valuable, there is a whole growth possible for a coach. And like you said, to listen to the whispering of another person's nervous system,
Yeah.
what you offer is really to listen to our own nervous system. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Tijen.
Sajili, for this beautiful conversation. And um, our lovely audience, if you missed in the beginning, you tuned into Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco. And we invite you to subscribe to our channel and send us a note or a feedback if you wish us to speak about particular topic that we have yet to cover. Until next time, stay well.